Okay, so uh, always I remember this date very well, the 23rd of August 2023, and that's such a great memory, the landing of Chandrayaan 3. And I had the fortune to announce that India is on the moon on that day. So this landing really changed everything as far as Indian space program is concerned. India became the very first nation to touch the southern half of the moon, and that too in the very first. And no, though it's not in the first attempt, it is though the second attempt. Of course, the Chandrayaan 3 rewrote the history due to many reasons. One, India developed everything within India. The rocket, the satellite, the sensors, the experiments. And also we achieved this mission with such a great complexity, such as complex mission which was achieved without any external help to say so. And also at a low budget. You all of us talk about Indian space program achieves missions with extremely low budget. I think this characterized the way in which ISRO used to perform in many other missions in the past, and also it outlines the vision for the future. So let me start from there. The Chandrayaan 3 landing is a defining moment in the story of ISRO. Prior to that, there is a story, and after that, there is going to be a different story. So for me, as the chairman, Secretary Department of Space, at that point in time, it was a great honor for me to lead the team and achieve this mission. But going back in history, in time, where I started my journey, I think it should be connected to this mission as well, because I had two important roles to play in this mission. One, taking the failure of Chandrayaan D, two, and then understand why it failed and then make all the necessary corrections. So much of it was happening in Dr. Shivan's time. But then when I came, it was still in its last phase. There were many gaps yet to be filled. Then making sure that this time it is not going to falter and it's going to make the mission success was a very important burden or responsibility on my head. The second point was that the rocket, which the LVM3, which was doing this mission, was sort of my baby. Because I have spent almost 50% of my life on that rocket, building the rocket and making the Chandrayaan 2 mission itself in its maiden operational flight. And of course, by the time it became the Chandrayaan 3 launch, it had already clocked many other successful launches. So this too defines my journey, the building the rockets that ISRO had today. I had an important role to play in all the rockets that are currently running, and also missions like Chandrayaan 3 and post Chandrayaan 3 defining the journey of ISRO, how it's going to tread its new path. It was in 1985, August 5th, that I joined ISRO. Just after graduation from engineering, I was waiting for the results to be declared. I was selected for ISRO as an scientist engineer as B grade during my 7th semester in engineering. It was not even completed my course. So there was a recruitment campaign going on for PSLV program because they were recruiting engineers for building the rocket PSLV. So I joined the bandwagon, applied for it. I was from a college in Kerala University, came for interview. They selected us, 5 of us from my class, and we were all the toppers in the class, possibly university rank holders at that time. And all the rank holders were in ISRO at that time. Except the first rank holder, I was the second rank holder. The third, fourth, and fifth all were there in ISRO at that time. I remember my branch, mechanical engineering. I still remember the day very well that on that day we were allowed to go inside the ISRO campus at Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre, Thiruvananthapuram. We were all allowed to assemble in a hall. 10 of us were there. And then the brother of Subramanian Chandrasekhar, the famous Nobel laureate, who talked about the black holes, his brother was there. He was the group director in charge of the human HR related activity at that point in time. I don't know why he was doing that work then. He was a scientist himself. But in ISRO, this also defines how HR work is done, not by HR professionals, but by the scientists themselves, which I later did in my career as a director. I had to do this work to build people and build teams. So he interviewed all of us. He was asking all of us where you want to work and what are your interests. There were many people in my batch. So there were electronics engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers. Some of them were talking about their domain and I want to work in this domain. Possibly they were given that slots. But when it came to me, I only said that I want to go where things are happening. That's what I said. So I was very clear in my mind. I don't want to become just a scientist, but somebody who actually deliver things. So that was very clear in my mind. Uh, in my journey in my engineering college also, I was like that. I was taking leadership in getting things done in my college also, projects, programs where I take up within the college itself. Then we were able to lead a team to get things done. So it was recognized in my college also. So in fact, I was awarded the best outgoing student award that year, etc., etc. So now that spirit was still there. So when I joined ISRO, I wanted to be doing something like that. I had no idea what exactly ISRO is doing. I had no idea what Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre is doing. But then I had a dream to join ISRO because when in my college, there was no courses on rocketry being offered. But then I went to the department and said that I want to study propulsion. There was a professor teaching it. But then I went to some of the teachers and I said that, can you learn this and teach us? Then he offered a course at that time as an elective on propulsion. And 10 of us studied that course. I remember that because that internal desire to learn this, to come to ISRO was always there. So I studied propulsion that year. The professor is still in contact with me over the phone. We talk about, he says, I am very proud because you became the chairman of ISRO. Of course, that is always a reward to the teachers that who their students become in good positions that later part of their lives. So joining ISRO on 5th August, I was talking about, on that day, I told this, that he told me that, there is a place called PSLV project. It is currently taking shape. It is building its new campus at Valiyamala, Thiruvananthapuram. It is not here. It is a little far away. So we are building its first of integration testing facilities. You can go and meet Dr. Srinivasan. He is the project director of this project. And also Madhavan Nair, who is the associate project director at that point in time. Then I collected papers and went to a small shed type of place. It is called the 70 acres area in Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre. It was made of some temporary sheds type of structures. There the project was, project teams were there. So went in and then met Sri Madhavan Nair. Dr. Srinivasan was out of station on that day, the project director. So Madhavan Nair was sitting in a very cramped room, not very big room. His table was big. There was no place for anyone to get in. There were 3 chairs. But once the door opens, the door will get the chairs also. So you have to just push yourself into the room and sit in front of him. It was not so exciting meeting because he was busy with so many things. So he met me and said that, of course, he asked my name and said, where are you from, all that. I said, you go to a place called integration facility. There is one Mr. Sanyal who is going to be taking care of the work there. You go and meet him and further work. We can do that. Then in between Sanyal, there was another person called Janardhanan. You meet him, he's sitting nearby. So he will take care of you. So that's all. And I left Madhavan Nair. I had no idea who he is and what he is doing. Then went to Dr. Janardhanan. He was also a novice in rocketry. He was working in electronics design, mechanical aspects of electronic design. That was his domain. So I joined with him, became his team member. But almost 1 month, I had no seat also in VSFC. No chair, no table. So I was sitting in front of Janardhanan for 1 month. Then he said that there is nothing to teach you. You give me some documents, then ask me to read, and then go around and talk to people. That's what the learning philosophy. So I went around, talked to a lot of people, understand what they are doing. So I found this current Liquid Propulsion Systems Centers was still not formed. The people associated with there sitting around. So I went and looked at the engine development program running, the design drawings, things like that. The drawing office was a very interesting place because I love drawings making. So I went around all these places, got idea about the people working in the team. So Mr. Janardhan was a nice boss. But then in 1 month time, we were all asked to move to the Valiyamala campus, which was still under construction. This was almost 30 kilometers away from the Trivandrum city. So when I went there, only I realized that there is no road to reach that campus. So our buses were stopping in some road, and 2 kilometers we had to walk through muddy roads to reach the campus. Of course, that journey continued for a few months. The roads were still being built. But fortunately, our sitting place was there. So I was assigned with a team in a facility called Mechanical Integration and Launch Complex. I had no idea what exactly it is. There were 5 people in my room sitting and one telephone at the center of the room. So when it rings, one of us have to jump to pick it. Okay. Or you can ignore it also. Could be for you then, most probably. So the life was very interesting, and the people around me were also very qualified and well-read people. And our job was to integrate PSLV. The PSLV was not even visible there. What was there was only drawings. And people had no idea about the size of the rocket. They say it is 2.8 meter diameter. It is 445 meter tall. And all these are numbers. They have no idea what exactly is going to be, what mass and size it's going to be. Possibly, you know that at that time, about 1 meter diameter SLV-3 was undergoing, just completed its missions. And the ASLV, which again is a 1 meter diameter rocket, was getting ready for launch. Sreedhara was bustling with the launch campaign at that time. For its second development flight, the first development flight has just failed. And second one was ready to get into integration. And another group of my team were actually doing that integration. So we were not part of that team. We were part of the PSLV team, which is supposed to integrate. Integrate means plan the integration process whenever the rocket is ready. But then the rocket is not visible. So I still remember a very interesting thing. My boss, Janardhan, wanted to paint one of the hardware because the hardware is still not visible. The rocket part is not visible. So he said, why don't I make a drawing of this and in 1:1 size and display? Okay, to feel us, to get us feel of this. Oh, when it was painted and displayed, then we felt how massive this. It was so massive, comparison to what our rockets are existing. And we still joke at him. They just made the first hardware by painting, not by actually making it. Of course, the hardware rocket manufacturing was going on at many places. Slowly, I was getting into the domain that I need to study and getting in. Then I also remember still to understand the human interactions in centers, ISROs. It's a very interesting story to understand. So Mr. Sanyal is a veteran from SLV-3 era. He was part of the Abdul Kalam's team. He came the boss of our group. And he was the only person who was at least an exposure to SLV-3 rockets. Now, the rest of the people in the team were not exposed to any of the rocket building yet. So I was with Mr. Janardhan. Janardhan's responsibility was to design, integrate, develop all the integration plans, integration systems, design, whatever designs required for integrations had to be completed. And while going through this work, I understood that we are not going together. He's not, occasionally he's making us irritate, and I was feeling not very happy with him. He says that my project director told me to tell you to do this, etc. So I was not happy with such instructions with my boss. So I started my quarrel with my boss. Then I went to the Sanyai, who was this boss, Janardhan's boss. I tell him, I don't want to work this guy. He's my boss. I want to change to somebody else. Then Sanyal said, wait, you don't take such decisions stupidly. You allow this to, you observe, you look at other people, you other bosses available. If you think anyone else is better than this, you can choose, you can move. Okay. Then I allowed this to go. Then Janardhan also came down. He said that I like this guy, but then this is his nature. So once you understand that, we were again back together, and he's such a great boss. And we loved each other very well till his passing away. I know we were connected even after his retirement. I thank him for his support in making me what I am, because next 10 years I was supposed to work with him. But then the good part is that he knew not much about it. So that was a good part of it. When the bosses are not fully knowledgeable, you have to learn things yourself. So this also tell you a different story of ISRO, how things work in ISRO. No, we have no training, really, into what we want to do. Absolutely no training, no classes, nothing. But then there is task in front of you, and you need to solve that problem. So I remember in the first week of my joining, I had 5 different tasks given to me. Design this, design that, find out this. Such 5 things. I wrote it on a notebook that was given, a Government of India notebook. And then looked at it. I had no idea how to do this. And I had no knowledge to do this. But then you have to solve this. You have to find out how to do. So only option is to go around, discuss with people, find out how it can be done, take options, try. That's all. And the whatever part is my boss also don't know. So all of us were not knowing anything what we are supposed to do. But then this is a beautiful part of it. We were allowed to innovate, find out, and then do it on ourselves. So I still remember when my boss was going for this promotion. We say promotions happen SB to SC, SC to ST. We call it like that. So he was going for his SF to SG interview. It was a very serious interview. He has to attend all the center directors, chairman is present. So when he was going, at that time, we were almost at the reasonable far end of the integration development. Many years passed. But then I still remember, it defines what it means to all of us. Why I say this, he said, I have to tell something in the interview board that he mark my contribution. No, he said. He was discussing with me. I was supposed to advise him how he should present in his interview. Just imagine, his subordinate is helping him to present himself in the interview so that he get promoted. So I told him, sir, you should say this. When we started, we were not knowing what is PSLV. We were not having any exposure to it. Today, we have made it. We have integrated it. It is on the launch pad today. We just say this is good enough. Huh? And he exactly said that in the interview. And with that, the interview board became silent. And he was given promotion. So it tells that how teams work and how a boss-subordinate relationship exists and how we learn together. Now, that's a very interesting part of the story. But then the journey there really helped me to understand the complexity of the rocketry. We were not doing the primary job of designing the rocket. The team was responsible to integrate the rocket. But it was not just integration that we were doing. We were studying many other things. Especially, I was very eager to study many things beyond what actually we do. So because of that, I had a lot of team members. Within no time, my team became very big. Under Janardhan and under me, my team were very big team. Unlike the current generations of young engineers, you will not get big tips immediately. But then I had a lot of young people under me because I was able to understand multiple domains. We were doing cooling plant designs for Sreedhara, and I was coordinating with the Sreedhara to build the launch pad for PSLV, how it should be defined, sized, configured. With only 3-4 years or even 5 years of experience, I was able to do that. Now, in my later when my boss, I still remember, Sanya, he changed, and the new boss he was Mr. Damakrishnan. Sanya had some health issue and he had to move to a less traveling place. So I want to talk about Sanyal also. He was in Calcutta. He passed away a few years back. After his retirement, he was living there, and I went and met him a few times there in Calcutta. So it was such a nice boss. We used to go for trekking outside trips and all that at that time. So when Ramakrishnan came, it again defined my journey in ISRO. Ramakrishnan was possibly, you may know that he was the project director of PSLV and also the first project director of the TKM III, and he was the director of IISc and also director of Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre. And after retirement, he passed away a few years back, and I was there with him on his last bed also. So I remember thank him. He was my boss for next 20 years. And he shaped what I am today. So that's another gratitude to one of the bosses. And Ramakrishnan was such a nice gentleman from Chennai. He studied in Madras Institute of Technology and took his post-graduation IIT in propulsion from IIT Chennai, joined ISRO and was part of the SLV-3T. So he became our boss. And with that, my destiny also changed because he found something unique in me. And he was assigning a lot of responsibilities to me out of so many people around. Possibly because I was able to do things faster or get things done from teams. I still remember in terms of cost estimates, budgeting, all these tasks came to me. And also designs of, for example, if you want to do a lot complex analysis, computer-based analysis. Computers were still coming. You remember 1980s, 90s, the computers were still not there in place. We were asked to set up a computer center, do analysis, looking finite element, thermal, cooling analysis, things like that. I set up all of that. Started doing it even in myself. Gained experience to do this type of designs and analysis. So he was appreciative of all of this. So I started studying a domain called vibration, and vibration isolation became my expertise later years. In fact, I took my Ph.D. in that from IIT Chennai much later. But my primary work was in that domain of designing the rocket parts to handle sustained vibrations and how to handle vibrations and protect critical systems from vibration damage. So this became my domain of expertise, and all that you have today in PSLV and GSLV and the fundamental designs dates back to what I did along with my colleagues. I still remember one of the names that I should remember is Vinu Narayanan. He left ISRO and then went to US later. But then we both did the early work of that, which is continued today in most of the rockets and systems. And also the products that we were importing at that time were fully indigenized using our knowledge and capability that we developed. But in addition to that, I must remember that PSLV was still taking shape. I had the opportunity to see how the PSLV project is working. I talked about Srinivasan and Madhavan Nair. They were the leaders, but there were other leaders who are very, very remarkable people. I think this is something which I have to talk about. Dr. Srinivasan was he was the deputy of Kollam, and he was number 2 in SLV3 project. Essentially, SLV3 was a brainchild of Kollam, though Srinivasan, but the credit was all with Kollam. The entire engineering was done by Srinivasan, not by Kollam. Kollam was most of a manager of getting things done and people manager, whereas engineering of the SLV3 was done by Srinivasan. After SLV3, he came to PSLV and became the project director. And even the PSLV architect is Dr. Srinivasan. But again, when we were going through that, he also had a heart attack and he had to take off from the task for many months. Then Madhavan Nair became the project director. And later, Dr. Srinivasan went to SDSC Shara as its director, and he passed away while he was the director there. So he was such a great gentleman. But the point about Dr. Srinivasan again, that he is again a product of Indian Institute of Science, where he did his master's, did his doctorate from the US, came back and then worked in ISRO, HIL, and then from HIL he came to ISRO and then working in that period of time. Such a thorough gentleman. Not seen him ever becoming angry. Very thorough with the documents. Any document you give him, he'll come back with hundreds of corrections marked everywhere with illegible English. You can read it. You need his PA only. You can read that, how he writes. But he takes tens and tens of documents every day, evening home, and come back after reviewing them back there. Such a hard-working person. He will never take rest. So, and maybe that would have taken its toll on his life, possibly. So that is nature of work that Srinivasan did, that he was very, very thorough and he worked to details of how things are done. And possibly that marks his nature. But he was not a great people manager. Okay. So, but that has to be done by somebody else. So that also tells different nature of people. Somebody who was great in technology may not have to be great in many other domains of how things are done. Whereas Madhavan Nair was a different type of person. The moment he takes over, he's a very strategic person. He has technical depth and he can, and also width of understanding. Though he was an electronics engineer, he had a great understanding of various other domains because of his exposure to SLV3. And he's also from SLV3 project. He was a project manager in SLV3, came to PSLV project. The moment he took over as PSLV project, the way in which he worked changed dramatically. It was accelerated and he was a problem solver. And there was another person called Perumal, R.V. Perumal. He was also the deputy project director, a very young person at that time, maybe 45 when I joined. And I was tapped by that fellow. And in fact, I decided that I'll become one day Perumal light. No, because the way he handles people, take technical things, understand and take decisions is really phenomenal. So if you start talking to him on something, before you finish, he understood it. You don't have to even complete the sentence. You don't have to even explain the problem. He understands and give the answers on his views on it very, very fast. And very, very sharp and intelligence in terms of ability to understand this. So all of us were charmed by his ability of Perumal. And when Perumal joined with Ramakrishnan was another person in the project who was my boss. It was such a wonderful combination. And it was actually the PSLV's entire PSLV's building in terms of its completeness, in terms of finesse, you say, is because of these two guys. Because they will bring out issues. Issues. Every week, and there will be review meetings where all concerned people will be brought. Ramesh will present the issue, Perumal will review with everyone and give a decision and to go ahead this route. And that completed the whole rocket development. And you can imagine that none of us knew what is the issue. So the complexity of that all of us were not even well educated on how to solve the problem, but they were solved. So even without knowing it, learning and then solving what became a natural process. Especially I remember when the Shakti Challenger mishap occurred, there was an O-ring failure, you remember, and they realized that there is a weakness in the joint of the Shakti. And immediately we took an action to review all the PSLV solid motor joints, and we found that the same problem exists in us. And we have to decide to make a change. And that change, how do we do? And the entire details are not available from them. But little bit of information is there. And with that, we made a major change, corrected it, brought back to a reliable configuration immediately. So that is understanding how the world is working, reading quite a bit across library about the other literature, taking clue from various designs across the world and then doing our own designs. Because there is no teachers for us to do this. So every day discussions go into fundamentals, like mechanics, dynamics, mission, control, structure interactions. And so many such things happen every day, and there is a lot of fighting happening between people. And one language of one domain will not be understood by the other domain. And I was intrigued by this particular area. It's called control structure interaction. When the control works, the structure flexes. So there is a flexibility of the structures, and when you start controlling it, it creates feedback which are very difficult to understand. So this had to be mathematically solved. So when I attend many of these reviews, though it was not my domain, I must tell you, I was responsible to integrate the not exactly study and do all of this. But I was fascinated and curious about all of this. So I attend all these reviews, understand, try to do this, make sense out of it. And I decided that one day I will study this domain because I know these people are not talking to each other. So I will study the issue in the boundary of these two subjects. And when I went to for my master's and in Institute of Science, precisely I took that subject and studied. So I can now talk with the authority on that subject and solve to such problems. And help me to solve this when I became the project and for AEM very much later. Though PSLV was solved by another set of teams. So these are the type of skills that you develop internally because you are watching people and learning. Essentially, our learning happens in meetings in ISRO. And when you attend meetings, and it has to be voluntary. There is no compulsion for you to attend a meeting. You can go and relax if you don't want to. You can go and attend a meeting and listen to. If it is your agenda, you are definitely required. If it is not your agenda, you can go. But then you don't go. You sit there, you listen to, you understand, you take notes of it, you read. And that's how some people are develop that skill of multi-domain awareness. Some people don't do that. And they will be happy with what they do. So the leadership development has to do with many of these aspects. How do you develop your skills? How do you develop multidisciplinary knowledge and how you can solve problems? So I told about Perumal, how you handle problems and solve problems. And this became one of my strengths. Today I can tell you that I can listen to problems and I identify how we can reach a solution, not that I can give a solution. So there is a way to reach a solution. I think this becomes very important. And this is possible only if you have an ability to understand domains other than your core domain. And many, many other domains play into it. So people say, I can understand electronics, chemical, communication, construction, design, building, manufacturing. You need to understand very wide varieties of domains. And this skill comes only when you attend to people and understand there is huge amount of knowledge around and you need to amass them, and it's not possible in your lifetime to do that, but still try. So this learning happened in PSLV, and I was responsible for the PSLV integration, I told. So by the time, many years have passed, 8-9 years, by the time you were building PSLV, the Sreedhara Space Centre was ready, the first rocket integration has to happen. Before that, you were doing months and months of stay at Sreedhara. So those are the days in which I had to travel quite a lot across India, and building and manufacturing pieces. Wherever it's happening, we had to go there, look at the features of integration, integrate them. Coming to HAI quite often, every month, I think 2-3 times I in HAI to look at the hardwares. Then do a lot of testing across India. One of the testing in Bengaluru called NAL, National Aerospace Laboratories, we were testing acoustic testing. You go to Sreedhara to do vibration testing, the massive facilities were there only. Then structural testing at HAI. Like that, most of the days I was out of Trivandrum across India and many places. So we were bachelors and there were no botheration for us to travel. So travel, and there was no flights for us at that time. No, ISRO, the flight eligibility came many, many years later. We were all traveling in buses and trains and reserved apartments, sleeping under the bed seats and all that. No, nobody complains, how to reach. So boss say you reach Sreedhara tomorrow. That's all. Not even ticket booked. So I go to Trivandrum, take a bus, go to Madurai, sitting there. Then Madurai to Chennai, we travel standing. And no complaints. So if you talk to the present generation, you will really wonder how they go do all of that. So we were as bachelors, it was like that. And reach Chennai somehow and Kota somehow. Today we have such a comfort level, traveling and doing things. So months together we stayed Chennai, those or Sreedhara or Bangalore to do this type of test and assignments. And all of this test is not just testing. No, being the team leader, I had responsibility to manage the team, the logistics, the getting things done, results analysis, all of this. It turns into months of effort. At Sreedhara, we were building the rocket. Before the actual rocket was built, we had to build at least 2-3 times. Separately do fluid mock-up, we call it, how propellant trials are done, cooling trials are done. So I still remember the launch pad. We used to walk up and down. The lifts were still not commissioned. So you remember the launch pad was almost 50 meters tall and we had to climb up and down. And this walking actually take away one shoe in one visit. I still remember I used to buy Puma shoes. I had a special size 8.5, which I used to buy. And then with every campaign, one shoe is lost. Because we walk all the way down and because the steel is in the launch pad, it gets damaged. But then it was an interesting younger age, so you can afford to do all of that. But it's exciting to remember all of that story. And the most beautiful part is the teammates. I think this is very interesting. When I joined, along with me, so many other sets of people, a lot of them, engineers, technicians, draftsmen, electronics create people, so many of them joined, and all of them are of my age. And all of us are fresh people. They are not experienced people at all. And only a few were experienced, like Madras, maybe there is another person, Narayan Murthy, and a few people were senior people were experienced. Under this big theme of inexperienced people were there. And they were supposed to build this rocket. Just imagine. And very few people to guide them. And it really happened. And all of us did a very phenomenal job. And the phenomenal job is that you did it differently than SLV3 and ASLV. And many people don't even understand that. If you have brought the SLV3 team as such, the half of the team to do PSLV, it would have looked like an SLV3. Today, when we brand new team without any exposure or experience came to do PSLV, it became a different rocket. Today, I can claim that PSLV is far superior to SLV3. And the next generation of rockets will be far superior in terms of engineering and design because we have to look afresh. A fresh team is always better in engineering a new system than an experienced team. If they say experience matters, experience is required at a higher level, not required at every level. And it gives the team a very challenging opportunity to discover themselves. So that's a very different skill that I believe that when you build teams, you should be very aware of this aspect, that you should not fill it up with too many experienced people. Because experienced people always move it in a direction which you think that is always right. Because then there are many, many other right paths which you have to discover. So this is a very great learning in PSLV, but the PSLV first launch, I still remember, is 1993. And we were getting ready for the launch and we integrated. I would have stayed in Sreedhara for months together to see that building, the assembly. I was responsible for the first stage assembly, the second stage assembly, the payload fairing assembly, and the satellite assembly. So this was my team's responsibility. So it is not everything of these stages, but there are certain aspects of these stages which I had. So from the project, I was the overall coordinator of the assembly, and there are specific contributions from my team. So it means defining the documents, procedures, the hardware realization, assembly processes, testing, all of that were part of that day, including logistics, everything was part of that whole work. So that was done the first launch day. The launch day, I think I still remember Nathan Nair was a visual director. And just before the launch was aborted. We looked at that there is a you remember the PSLV is fully filled at that time. It is at the launch pad, and few moments before the launch, I think the launch was called off because one signal was not coming. Why I say this event is because you can understand the subsequent events. So when it was declared, everybody was very anxious to know what happened. Then the administration came running, told me that we should go to launch pad now. He said, it is fully filled with the propellant. We cannot enter. No, we will go. And I said, he started in a car, and behind me there were other people. And I still remember those people where one was Sanyai and another person was Nabinarayanan. So we were sitting in the launch pad. So I was with a screwdriver and things like that, Allen key we call it. We were opening the doors of the rocket. You remember the propellant is filled in the rocket and safety issues are there. Still we were there to understand what went wrong. And I was sitting in the floor and opening the doors. And adjacently, you can remember, you just note that Nabinaran was sitting and opening another door. Okay, so he was a very senior person in the system. Ramakrishnan was another senior person. I was a junior person. Okay, maybe 10 years of service. They would have been senior people. They were all working in that type of environment. So when a critical situation comes, they all come together to do things. So that opening, we found out what went wrong. It was a connection problem, an electrical connection problem, and launch was rescheduled to a few days later, and launch happened. But the mission was a failure. It was due to a signal overflow in one of the third stage substitutes that the third stage control did not happen. It was almost very well done up to that. And in fact, we found that the rocket went down and performed very well, and satellite got ejected, but it was in a wrong orbit, or rather the orbit that going towards the sea. So there was no way that it could actually make a successful launch. But then it felt so bad for all of us. We were so depressed, especially when you go back and look at the launch pad and where the rocket was standing, it looks empty, and our heart was also empty. But within few days, we were back at Valiamala, and Mathan Nair was very insistent that you should do this launch within few months. And I remember the way in which the problems were resolved. The whole way we looked at the mission simulation changed. Also, Dr. Shivan would have talked about that role, that area. He was tasked with developing he was part of the PSLV project responsible for a mission, and the problem happened there, exactly there, that domain, where the control signal got reversed due to inadequate assessment of the simulation results properly. So this brought out a new understanding that we must conduct simulations very, very thoroughly, and the results of that has to be very carefully seen for any signatures of such issues. And we should also strengthen many other areas. So, and a new team was formed to carry out this. And in fact, I remember it's Shivan's boss, Chidambaran, would have headed that whole area. And Dr. Shivan was also part of that team. And they established today something called Mission Simulation and Synthesis Division, which happened there. And all that happened in that next few months. And they had to do hundreds of such simulations to find out what could anything else that can go wrong in that. And we were building the next set of PSLV. Now, unlike current rates of rocket building, we were very difficult to get hardwares in numbers. So we had to organize hardwares and get the next PSLV launch to be ready. So I was responsible for many of the sub-assemblies. So in fact, by the time I was responsible for the PSLVs, they showed all industrial assemblies, electronic assemblies, vibration, isolation requirements. It's conducting vibration test. It was a huge work. I don't know, the day and night went. We never could go home. I still said no, I was still a bachelor. So 10 years into service and not married. So I used to say that I forgot about this part. He never looked at that part, whether to make a family or not until then. But there was pressure from family that you should get married at this time. But I said that I will finish this work, let the PSLV go. That is more important. And I had also a dream to go for my higher studies, to go for my master's program, which I was requesting my bosses to allow me to go, but they were not allowing, because unless you finish this PSLV, you are not allowed to go anywhere. So PSLV D1 was done, it failed. D2, when I completed all the sub-assemblies, getting ready for launch, I requested I be allowed to go to IISc for my master's. And just 3 months prior to that, I married also. So just after marriage, I came to IISc for my master's. The PSLV was at the launch pad. So I watched the launch going successfully from Bangalore. At headquarters, I came here and watched it. So I remember along with my professors at IISc. So that's the journey of PSLV. So when I came to IISc, I decided that my earlier goal was to understand this particular domain called control structure interactions, which was always a problem area in the rocket design. I decided that I will study this specifically in my master's. So I did all the courses specifically, and I passed out with the gold medal in that two domains, control structure interaction domain out of IISc. So that 2 years, anyway, is out of ISRO. But then I still remember at that time I designed a rocket as part of my 5-year thesis. And that was exactly the LGM 3 that currently we built. So along with me, there were other team members of Soumya Narayanan, who retired recently as the director of ISRO Energy Systems Centre, my batch classmate. Mr. Subramanian, he came from ISRO, he retired as the group director of the mechanisms group. And two other people, Radhakan Padi, he designed the control system for this rocket. He's currently the professor at the Institute of Science. And Professor P. Ramakrishna, he's again my classmate. He's now the professor of propulsion at IIT Chennai. So you can tell that all of us designed the rocket. As part of our MTech thesis, today stands as the LGM 3. But of course, it is not exactly that rocket. The upper stage we designed in the college was the nuclear powered rocket, though we ended up building a cryogenic rocket. But then it was more or less looked like that rocket. So we did everything as part of it. So that helps me to teach students now how to design rockets. When I became a professor at IISc post-retirement as an honorary visiting professor. So that's the story of IISc. And IISc actually gave us such a confidence. I think all of us, I remember many of my bachelors, including Dr. Nidhishan Nair from GSLV, Kumar, who became the associate director of Human Spaceflight Centre, Swaminarayan, he is the director of IASU, and many others. IISc is such a different place. It gives you a confidence that is beyond comparison. Because now you know that everything that you're dealing with is nothing but mathematically modelable. You understand it is possible to convert every problem into a set of mathematical statements, and you can actually solve them. And you don't have to worry about it. Earlier we had worries, and I told my professors that what you learn in IISc is that how to get rid of those worries, and you can solve them by looking at through the mathematical lens. And once you do that, every problem becomes solvable. So there is now no more anything which is nothing possible. With the physics, it is possible to attend to it. That confidence you get from IISc teaching. It's not just subjects that you study. It is actually you get confidence. So way back in ISRO, after my master's, I was again in PSLV project. At that time, Damrushan was moved out of my earlier boss position of integration. He moved to the core project, became associate director of the PSLV. And he said that you also move, because he said Damrushan and myself had I don't know what, a sort of chemistry. He wanted me always with him. And I was very thoroughly unhappy because I was in the integration area and I was the topper there rather than doing everything. And I was to become the head of the division within no time if I continued there. Then he said, what is there to do? You have already done what is required. Now you go look at a new area. And I was sitting there alone for almost 3-4 months with no work. And I was so desperate after my master's. Then Damrushan was the Perimal, which earlier I described. He was the project director of the PSLV. Madan has already moved out of the project and became the director of Liquid Propulsion Systems Centre. So this was the time then I started doing the re-engineering of PSLV work. PSLV was already launching. They had already completed the 3 launches. The 4th launch also was about to be done when I joined. But then I decided that it's a time to do many more improvements, substantial payload improvement, substantial flexibility on its mission. So we started a new program called System Engineering for the PSLV. The innovation allowed me to create it. And then I started doing very many aspects of it, including performance optimization, improvement in PSLV, bringing a lot of new designs like composites, involving commercially foreign satellites to be launched in PSLV. So I became the launch service coordinator for launching the first of foreign satellites in PSLV. So coordinated with the Belgium and Germany for their satellites to be launched. Probe and Bird, there were 2 satellites which was launched in the PSLV at that time. So I was the launch service coordinator, designed all the interfaces, the mechanism, separation system, how to separate, its simulations, all of that he did, and then proved that mission successful. So that changed the destiny of PSLV. Today, PSLV has launched almost 440 satellites. using the rocket, maybe for 300 and odd satellites from the IEM-3 and others also launched. So maybe 300 odd are belonging to PSLV. And this started from there as how to launch a primary and auxiliary satellite concept. So we had interfaces with the Ariane group, Ariane 5 rocket, and then the broader collaborative arrangement. I had discussion with headquarters at that time to deal with the international collaboration. So I began the phase of international collaboration in PSLV, contract management, interface and designs, interface control documents all became my domain of expertise, and how to handle foreign satellites into our mission became the standards, and we established a lot of standards how to do that. So those were the times, and PSLV payload capability improved from the first launch, which was only 850 kilogram, now to almost 1,850 kilogram. And this improvement happened a very progressive change in systems, which we did during that time, during 3-4 years of time that we did that. Of course, later also we did a lot of improvements when I became director of ESFP and all that. That is another phase of journey. But why this was happening then? On one day, one Mr. Pillai, Mr. R.A.D. Pillai, who was in charge of the program management in the project, said that by the time Madhan Nair has become Center Director of Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre, he moved from the GSC to ISSC. The chairman was Kastur Ranjan, and we were assigned with building a new rocket called IEM-3 has to be developed. So this R.A.D. Pillai came and asked me whether can you become the member secretary. They suggested that you can be, and Ramakrishnan will be the chairman of the committee. Again, we were together. Ramakrishnan as the chairman and me as a member secretary, and a lot of other people in the committee. We started writing how to design the rocket, the new rocket IE. And that was a work for next 2 years while we were working in the PSLV project itself. We had all those responsible for building and launching the upgraded version of PSLV. We had C1, C2, C3, C4, all were launched during this time, 2000 to 2002 time frame. So during that time, we wrote the project report. It was a very massive effort across the centers, go around, understand what is needed for a new rocket, what are the new facilities that are required to be built, what are the new technologies that you have to develop, how much investment in different domains have to happen, what all we need to build by coordination with many industries to build the facilities and infrastructure, including some assembly testing, new launch pad was to be built for launch. All this were designed, developed, and incorporated in the project report. For a 2005 project report was written. So I was responsible for everything. In fact, the meetings happened. You had to assimilate the entire information, put in the project report, bring the cost document. So that 2 years was such a tormenting time to write this project report. But only the happy part is that when I completed this project report, Kastur Ranjan was the chairman. But immediately the change has happening. Madhan Nair became the chairman. And by the time this report was submitted, he took the report, and within no time it got approved from the government without any correction. So it was such a happy thing that the report I submitted has such a good approved without change in the text or even in the cost numbers. And I'm happy that later I had the fortune to launch that rocket as the project director. So I wrote the project report. Next 15 years later, I was the project director launching its first mission. So it is a great journey in that part of this. So many things. And if I go back and look at the PSLV team, still we have a very strong contact with the entire team. Many of the early learning happened for the PSLV project team. It is a very, very committed team. Even today, I can see the expertise is so deep in the people. Even after retired people are there, I go and consult many of them, even now, possibly during this PSLV failure, the last 2 failures. I was a member of that committee. And I went with the data to my previous PSLV team members, who must be 70 today. And I went and spent time with them to understand what is their opinion about these 4 things, and I collected all their views before I made my view of this. So they are very passionate people. They study and come study with them. So because of such people only, we still had very, very, very good system. And all this knowledge didn't come from any textbooks. They spent their time and made it as their own. The one nice book one of the person has written is Lessons Learned in Solid Propulsion Technologies. I have the book. It is not published book or anything. It's written by him for himself. I grabbed one book and it's still with me. So we talks the story of how each of those changes we did, why it is did, and what is the significance of them, and how we understand each of this. And you won't find it in a textbook. So that's why when you develop such complex things, there is something called tacit knowledge that is developed with the people, and how to capture that and use it for next generation is a serious issue, which I see everywhere. That's why organizations are important, structures are important to keep the knowledge intact. Otherwise, knowledge itself will vanish. If you don't maintain organizational structure properly, and also keep them doing things on a continuous manner. If you arbitrarily stop doing things, also the knowledge will be lost. So rocket knowledge is like that it's not available, just easily. I can tell you an example. Recently, the Ariane people were struggling to develop the new rocket called Ariane 6 for the Ariane 5, Ariane 6. They told me that you never ever follow our model in your organization. You failed miserably by making a change in the management structure. What they did was Ariane 5 was developed by CNES, the French national agency, and they were the prime architect. But when Ariane 6 was developed, they decided that let it be developed in the private. And they handed over the prime design authority to, I think, the company which was developing, which is called I'm getting the name, Ariane Group. It's a private group, and after that there are many companies. Okay, so these companies were actually doing the design of the rocket. And finally, when the rocket was being developed, they found nothing is happening because the knowledge which was integrating everything was not available. Everybody is expert in their own domains. To make a rocket work, you need to understand in its entirety to make decisions. And this system engineering knowledge was absent in that private entity, but it was available in the National Space Agency called CNEs. And they decided that they have to be brought back to advise and do this. So this is a very important information because in your organization, generating knowledge over a period of time, years together, and it resides not in books. It resides in the minds of the people. And when they come together to look at it, the inherent internal knowledge comes out in the form of advices and directions in the reviews. And that is what makes it a success and failure. So this, if you do not understand this, complex engineering problems cannot be solved. So people are the most precious commodity, not facilities, not equipments. So this has to be well understood. And this is an advice which I give to many people in the private ecosystem which are developing. And you don't think that this few 10 people can actually build a rocket. Impossibly. You need a huge amount of advices, support, because the complexity of that cannot be understood. Spacecrafts are much simpler, whereas rockets are not. Rockets are one-time machines, and small errors can actually lead to permanent failures, whereas spacecrafts can still recover in orbit through some command and software access, which is not possible in rockets. Then there is a lot of other interplays like aerodynamics, control, thermal, fluid flow, which are not there in satellites at all or any other complex systems. Now coming back to GSLV Mk III, I think the journey started after my break from PSLV. So there was a decision to move all of us from PSLV to GSLV Mk III to again back to a shed where I started. So we were looking for a space for our LVM3 GSLV Mk III project to sit. There was no space, no room in Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre. So we are given one old SLV3 shed. We call it shed only because they are all, as the shows laid, shed, long sheds where we went there. Then 10 of us were there and we refurbished, started sitting there and made our design office. The new rocket was taking shape. Ramakrishnan was there as the project director and many others. Some of the old veterans were there. He started doing the design of the rocket. So my job was to do the overall design of the rocket. So I became the project manager in charge of the system engineering of the rocket. So I had very wonderful team. I also brought a few people who are very good at doing it. Again, team building is the key of anything that you want to do. So next 5 years was nothing but spending time on every nut and bolt of the rocket in making drawings, participating reviews. So by the time Ramakrishna was moved to become the director of the IISc, and new person came, Mr. Narayanamurthy, who retired as the associate director of ISRO later. So that was going on, and by the time we were reaching some maturity of design, hardware started flowing. from industries. Then I don't want to go through all that story of that rocket development and its facility. But after PSLV project, GSLV project happened. That is called GSLV Mark II. But GSLV Mark II was essentially a continuity of PSLV with using the same modules of PSLV with only a Russian cryogenic engine state being added, essentially. So that way, cryogenic technology and its concerned operational part were one of the important elements of it. And in this, the most important role was played by Mr. Perumal, who was the first project director of GSLV. He made that team work wonderfully well. I must remember how he dealt with the Russian team, because Russians are coming for this interface between an Indian and American language, culture, the way we talk. Perumal had done a phenomenal job in dealing with them, with creating great respect of Indians in their minds on how to understand rockets, and finally making it successful in the very first flight. All that credit goes to Mr. Perumal, who was part of the PSLV project, and from that and then did this wonderfully well. And many people don't even know about him. He still lives in Chennai. He's such a wonderful person. We meet occasionally. Whenever retired people we meet, I go there to make sure I meet him and greet him. And he's my guru in, you say, what do you say that in Mahabharata, you say Ashwatthama, exactly the same fellow. So without ever defining him as my guru, I take him as my guru, right? But I remember later I had also a lot of arguments with him. I had disagreements with him. Okay, interviews. It is okay, fine, to have a disagreement with your guru also. Then no problem. At some point in time, he was right. Now I am right. So it's not that I am right, but the time changes. And this is an important lesson also, to understand when somebody younger than me questions me, I must have the same attitude to him, that to understand that he is now better equipped to question me. And this is a very important learning. And I use it very, very effectively today to deal with people of younger age. Because if you don't respect their view, and you still think that you are the one who knows everything, there is a serious problem. And it is very important to give room for young people to come out with good ideas. And as an older man or an experienced man, you can use that good idea in a very effective manner. The good ideas always come from young people. It never comes from old people. This is one thing I tell everywhere. Keep the company of young people if you really want to become relevant. You are happy that you are there with them. So this is very important lesson in organization. So if you do not create a certain amount of distribution of equity with the many aspects. Age is only one aspect, experience is another aspect, region is another aspect, language is an aspect, culture is an aspect. And if you do not create a multicultural system, in our context, you will not be able to be very, very great. This false. I see that, and very important to create that type of thing. Kollam was very good at it in the SLV curriculum. He always made sure that he create that type of organizational culture. And every time that you create one group of people in one place, it actually creates problems. Because they have their own interest, their own way of working, their own way of talking. If you start talking in Bengali, you talking Tamil in one group, it creates problem. So we made sure that you do not put a Tamilian with a Bengali. We will always put him like that, so that he will speak in English. Kollam was very particular about it, to make sure that they are like that. So these are very important elements in building organizations. How do you create cultural differences? The respect for various approaches and views is significant in building organizations. And if you any times you see that you need to put everybody from one region to one organization, it will not work at all. It will not work. It will also create problems of mediocrity in the whole system. I think it's very, very important to understand. And at that time in Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre was such a wide India. You will always see so many different types of people across country. From everywhere we had people. Mr. Hanbu was from Kashmir, who was the structural dynamics expert. Later I died for Ph.D. Mr. Sreedhara Panicker from UP. He was the deputy to Perumal, who was responsible to design structures of PSLV. Mr. Sadashiva was from Bengaluru. He was the boss of Ramakrishnan, specifically for propulsion work. Then Dr. Sreedhara, he was again from, from UP or Bihar. He was the person who was responsible for electronics and systems areas. Like that, you have from across the country in the PSLV team, core team itself. And you can see that Mr. Vijay Kumar, I remember. He's very old man now. He lives in Ahmedabad. He was in charge of establishing quality, configuration control and other processes and PSLV at that time. So we recently awarded him with the Lifetime Achievement Award. He was very happy to receive that. So, such varieties of people with a lot of knowledge, skill assembled together, you can do wonders. That was an exact learning from PSLV project. Of course, rocket was much more complex than with what you talk in English, but then you need to understand and spend your lifetime to really to make a sense of the whole of it. That's what I can tell in simple terms. Whereas it is really wide variety of subjects that you are dealing with. One side you are dealing with aerodynamics, flight dynamics. You deal with propulsion, chemistry, chemical. Sometimes you deal with adhesives, bonding, corrosion, stress and strains, which do with structures, and whatnot. I don't know to talk about domains that go. And when you have to listen to all of this and understand and then make decisions, when I later did as director of ISSC, it's a huge challenge. Because so many people will come and talk to you and from different domains and different disciplines. And you need to make a sense of what they're talking. You need to be understanding this little bit, at least a little bit. So this is a huge challenge in this domain. So at this moment, I think the second phase of journey in RVM3 is something interesting. And then after that, we will get into my roles as director and as well as chairman. So till then, I will take a short break.